today in Adobe Photoshop. I'm using CS6, but this will pretty much explain how to use Photoshop in general because the tools don't change too much between versions. Um, I got my keyboard up here in the corner just in case I pull up a shortcut and I'm moving a little too quick for you guys. You can see which button I pressed. I'll try to just verbally explain what I'm doing, but I don't know, sometimes I move a bit fast. We're just gonna go over the marquee and I don't know, a few of these tools in the toolbox so you can get a better understanding of how to use Photoshop. I just have a sample picture here that I'm gonna use that I took. We'll start off, obviously, this here is the move tool. If you were to have like multiple layers, I'll duplicate this layer real quick just to show you an example. You'll be able to move it. That's what the move tool is for, to move objects around on your canvas. If it's locked, it'll tell you that you can't move it. Simple. Okay, so now we have the rectangular marquee tool. Now the marquee tools, there's actually a few of them. If you click and hold down the button, you'll see that there's actually 4 different ones. We'll go over this first one here. Now you just click and drag to select whatever portion you want to affect, and any type of editing I do is only going to affect what's inside the box. So if I wanted to brighten up the picture in this box, just go to image adjustments, brightness, and as you can see, it's only affecting the boundaries. So, or what's inside the boundaries, I should say. So that's what the marquee tool is for, selecting certain things and then editing that specific selection. Now, other things you can do once you have the marquee tool selected, you can move it around, of course, but let's say you want to move what's selected. You can go back to the move tool and bam. That's how that works together. The elliptical marquee tool is pretty much the same thing. And this here just like highlights the pixels in a horizontal fashion or a vertical fashion. Just a single column of them. Another interesting thing you can do with the marquee tool is like the feathering. Now the feathering will make the edges soft. So if I turn the feathering up, I'll turn it up to like 13, 15 or whatever. You can see like the edges, maybe you can't see it, but the edges are like curved now and they're softened. So if I move it now, see how the line isn't as harsh and sharp and crisp as it was previously? Because it's feathered, the edges are softened. And you can, like, you know, make the feathering all the way up to 250, I believe. Let's see, I'll try to go to 300 and see if it lets me. Oh, so it lets you go as high as, you know, probably as high as you'd like to get, or as high as you'd ever need to get. Also, another thing you can do, there's these 4 boxes here, and if you just hover over them, they tell you what they do. So let's say I just want to, you know, select this area. And let's say, oh, I meant to add and actually get this top portion of her head too. So I can just go to this option, the add to selection, and you know, you can just keep adding to it. Now, even if it's not connected, anytime I make an edit, it's going to affect anything that's inside any boundaries. The next tool is like subtract from selection, or the next option I should say, and that's if you want to get rid of the selections, you know, just drag over them. This here is to intersect the selections, and it only grabs the portion that you've selected between the 2 marquees. Simple. All right, the next tool is the Lasso tool. There's three options in the Lasso tool. The shortcut for it is the L key. And the Lasso tool, it works a lot like the marquee tool, but you make your own custom selection. So let's say if I wanted to, crop her head out, you just keep clicking and making your points. It's like connecting dots. Whoops. I would actually want to select her head, so I'm going to go back like that. And the more you take your time with the curves, the better the selection will look, of course, but and the the polygon lasso tool will make any shape that you like and keep going until you connect the final and closing. I know this isn't the best tracing, but just trying to show you guys an example. Okay. Click, 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 all the way around until you connect it. Bam. Now you have your selection. And just like the marquee tool, you can move it around or change the brightness or the hues and saturations, whatever you like to do. You can desaturate it. As long as you have that portion selected, it's only going to affect that portion of the photo. And then the lasso tool is sort of similar. It's a little more difficult to use. You have to click and hold the button down and just drag until you get what you want. And it's a lot harder to work with. So I typically just use the polygon tool. The magnetic lasso tool is pretty cool too because the magnetic lasso tool, what this will do is like click around the edges if it can find a difference in color or contrast. So like you just click once and drag and it traces it for you. So the best of its stability of the computer. And then there's these options up top, like the frequency. These are all affect the sensitivity of the lasso. Now we have the magic wand and the quick selection tool. Zoom in a little bit. The quick selection tool. Now what this tool does, it just selects whatever you're clicking in. It's going to try to find colors that are similar, colors and textures. And it works pretty good too if everything's like separated in color or contrast. And you can select, make a selection fairly quick and it can be pretty accurate. Oops. So that's what that tool does, the quick selection. I mean, it's for if you're trying to like speed up the process. You have a more simple picture where there's a lot more separation. I'm just gonna deselect this. And then there's the magic wand tool, which is kind of similar to the quick selection tool, except you only have to make one click. And then let's say like if you turn the tolerance up, it'll make more selections. So you have to be careful about, you know, with the tolerance settings on. And all of these options have these other tools up here, or these other options. Let me say that again. All these different tools have all these options that are pretty similar and just affect the sensitivity of the tool. So the best thing to do when you're using Photoshop is just to like play around with the tools and see what they do specifically. All right, the next tool is the crop tool, which works a lot like the marquee tool as well. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's for cropping. You click and drag. Once you get a crop that you like, you can hit enter, and then bam, there's your crop. Some of these other tools inside the crop options are a little more complicated. I'll get into those another day. Let me undo this. Next, the eyedropper tool. Eyedropping is like for most art-based programs. You're basically just selecting a color sample or like a swatch sample. You can change the sample average. Like, say if you just want a point sample from that specific pixel, whatever pixel you click on, bam, that's the color you're gonna get. And if you look on the left at the brown, you can see that it's changing according to where I move on the skin as I'm holding the button down. If you want a better average color, you can, you know, up the ratio. Now here, if I click that, it's gonna give me more of a overall tone of her skin versus if I just click the point sample, which sometimes may be more of what you need depending on what you're using the swatch for. The heal tool. This one's interesting because this tool is a very notorious tool, along with the stamp, which is pretty similar to it. The heal tool brush, what does it really do? It gets rid of blemishes, you know, any type of pimples, any type of imperfections like a hair strand that's out of place, tattoos. You can remove tattoos with it. You can get rid of stretch marks, extra nipples, if that happens to be the case. Just all different types of things. Whatever you want to hide, you can hide it with the heal, patch, and stamp tools. These tools are very good for that. So I'll just use this red dot for a quick example. I'm not going to go into it and try to make it look perfect, but I'm going to show you guys the capabilities of these tools. So let's say that she changed her mind on the red dot for the picture for whatever reason. We're going to go to the heal brush. Now, if you click with the heal brush, what does it do? It starts to it takes samples from the pixels around the spot you want to heal, and it like generates those same pixels to make it blend in and disappear. So now, to anyone who's never seen the original photo, they'd never know that she had that dot on her head. Just gonna undo it a little bit, bring it back. Now there's the dot again. Okay, so, and the heal brush, there's other variations of it, but they pretty much all do the same thing. The spot, or this one here, you have to define a source. So if you try to click it, you have to hit Alt first to find a source, and then see, it'll even tell you that option click to define a source point. So you have to click the option key first, and then you can click anywhere on her skin where it's a similar color, and it'll generate a fixing according to that spot on the body. So as you can see, it's pulling from the top right making new skin cells for getting rid of the red spot. Pretty simple. And then yeah, the clone stamp is very similar to that, so I won't go over that tool. The brush tool, whoops, let's see. Pretty self-explanatory. You make a new layer or whatever have you. And whoops, what's going on? You get this big round sort of thing that's showing you the shape of the brush. It's like an outline. If you click up here, there's all these different brush sizes. I'm going to stretch this out so you can see it better. With different like hardens percentages and different textures. They all give you a different result. And brushes are like some of the most interesting things in Photoshop. Because they come in a countless amount of shapes and textures, and they just really bring pictures to life. You can start a picture from scratch with just brushes. So if you're a big brush fan, what you can do is like go on Photoshop and download free brushes off DeviantArt, or if you just go on Google and type in Photoshop brushes, there's like a never ending, you never have to buy a brush if you don't want to, or you can make your own. It's pretty simple. Okay. The pencil tool is a lot like the brush tool, except it's usually pretty solid. You can change the texture of the pencil as well, but it's gonna give you a different result than the brush does. Let's see, some other tools that I frequently use that I would like to discuss. Okay, obviously the eraser tool. It's gonna get rid of whatever you want to erase. You can change the hardness of it. It works exactly like a brush, except it subtracts instead of adds. The gradient is a pretty interesting tool. It's like a fade. So I'll make a new layer. This up here pops up when you pull up the gradients. And what this does is control the type of gradient you're gonna make. So let's say I want to do like a red and green linear gradient. You just click and drag over the picture. Make sure you make a new layer, and it'll give you the exact colors that you were selected in the top left. These are cool because then you can do like light spills and stuff like that. Different effects you can make on pictures. The cool thing about gradients is that another cool thing. Oops. Another cool thing about gradients you can do, like all these different options up here. There's like a radial one, and then there's an angle gradient, reflected gradient, diamond gradient. They all do different things. Like I'll just do the reflected one real quick so you can see what it looks like, or the radial one. It creates like a circle and expands out to the other color. Also with gradients, one last thing I wanted to say is you can make them first off, you can make your own with your own colors that you want to pick. If you want it to be green to yellow, or green to blue, or whatever have you. And they also have transparent. So like you can have it go from a solid color to no color at all. See? White to nothing. So that's the tool that I like to use a lot to create little different depths of color or depths of light. The blur tool is a tool that will bring your picture's out of focus. What's going on? There we go. The more you click on it, and if you turn the strength up, it'll just start to make your picture blurry and out of focus. It brings things out of focus. Be careful with this tool, because once you bring it out of focus, it's pretty hard to sharpen it back up the same exact way. Which is what the sharpen tool would do. The sharpen tool sharpens the photo. See how horribly sharp it's starting to look, and the details are starting to be too extreme. And you can see the difference that the sharpen did. So obviously when you're sharpening your pictures up, you don't want to sharpen them to that level, but it's just to show you what the sharpen does. Smudge tool. The smudge tool obviously smudges things for you. It can be a cool effect if you want to like create like a cartoon kind of a look. You can like go over the skin and smudge it a lot. It was a pretty popular effect on mixtape covers like a couple years back, maybe like 4 or 5 years back. But smudging the skin makes it look a little more toonish. And it just, you can like get rid of blemishes like that as well, but you have to be careful because you lose details when you smudge the skin out. But smudging can be used to get rid of blemishes as well as like just like drag pimples out of the skin, and or just create an artistic kind of look, depending on what you're trying to do with it. But yeah, smudging gives you that smooth, like you've painted it sort of look. You know. Okay. All right, the last few tools are pretty simple. The dodge tool, this tool here will allow you to lighten or darken not darken, but lighten a specific area, depending on which area you're over, the exposures, how strong the tool will work. Shadows, midtones, and highlights is the part that will be affected. So let's say I have it on shadows. When I click, it's most likely to bring up the darkest areas and make them brighter. See, it's making her lips brighter from bringing the shadows out. If you go to midtones, then it's gonna target the midtones in the selection. If you go to highlights, it's gonna target the highlights. So this is for you can pretty much relight, like change the lighting on pictures with the dodge and burn tool. The burn tool will do just the opposite. It'll darken whatever spot you have selected, midtones, shadows, or highlights. And these tools can really help you like change the lighting on the picture. So it's a really good idea to get familiar with them. The sponge tool, it either enhances or subtracts saturation from your picture, depending on which option you have selected up here. So if you want to desaturate a certain part of a photograph, you feel like it's sticking out too much or something, you can take the desaturate and bring it down. See how the red's getting not as prominent. Or you can turn it up, make it stand out more. See, it's more vibrant now. And that's what these three tools do. The pen tool. This is probably my favorite tool in Photoshop. Um, it's very versatile. You can use it as a selection marquee. If you put this to path, you can make paths with it. And I like using it more than I like using the lasso because you can, if you click and drag it, you can make it curve. You can't do that with these tools here. It just doesn't work the same. So that's one thing about the pen tool that I like. Also, I like the fact that, you know, if you screw up, you can just delete the point. With the marquee tool or the lasso tool, you cannot do that. Once you mess up, you have to start the entire lasso over again. So the pen tool is great for replacing the lasso. Because once you get your selection, all you have to do is, let's say I just wanted to select this part of her face. You right click on it, make selection, bam. And it's as if I used the lasso, but with much curvier points and much more accuracy. Some other things you can do with the pen tool. You can make custom shapes with it. And what a custom shape will do is like any size that you make the shape, it won't get fuzzy. So you can make it as big as a billboard or as small as a thumbtack and it'll still stay sharp. You can't do that with the lasso tool. You can do different things to the path like stroke it and all these options. They're not available because I just have a point here. So let's say like I wanted to make, instead of a path, I wanted to make a shape. Now when I click with the pen tool, it'll create a shape for me. And this shape, like I said, it can be made any size and it'll never get fuzzy. It'll always be sharp. I use the pen tool to make a lot of vectors and basically, I mean, that's pretty much it. I use it for a lot of vector work. So if I need, no matter what size I need to print it out, it's gonna look good. I'll get more in depth with the pen tool if I do a lesson directly relating to it. The next tool I want to go to is the type tool. Pretty self-explanatory. There's 4 options here. You can either use the mask or the vertical horizontal type tool. Vertical make the type go up and down. Horizontal make it go left or right. And then here, I'll bring it up for a second. I'm just gonna type photo shoot here. I didn't mean to curve it like that, but whatever. Okay. Now, let's say, okay, this text is cool, but I want to modify it a little bit. Let's make it a little more funky than this. You can go to open your characters, and you can pick your fonts, of course. You can make it bigger, smaller. You can mess with the tracking, which will, like, the tracking, what that'll do is change the spacing between each character and make it, you know, an even amount. So, I mean, you know, depending on how you want the text to look, you might want it to be more spaced out or more close together. I don't know. Also, you can distort it as far as the vertical or horizontal scale goes. There's these different text options down here that let you do different things to the text. There's like a fake bold style in case the font family you're using doesn't have a bold character. You can use the Photoshop one, which doesn't work that good, but I guess it's better than nothing. And there's also the italic one, which works pretty good. There's an all caps option that allows you to, no matter how you type, all of your letters will be in capital letters. There's a small caps, which will make the lowercase letters, they'll still be capitalized, but they'll be smaller than the actual capital letter. Also, they have like superscript, or like, exponent style, or subscript. Oops. Underline, cross out. So there's different things you can do with the text. You can also, like, if you click this option up here, warp text, you can arc it, arch it, bows, all these different options to affect the text. So you don't have to just have regular boring text if you don't want to. Okay. This tool right here, it's not that important unless you're going to be working with paths and stuff like that. So I'll get into that tool another day. But this tool here is a shape tool. Now what the shape tool does is allow you to create shapes. The shapes are made in the same fashion as the shapes in the pen tool. So you can make them any size you want, and they'll never get fuzzy on you, or the quality will never get low. Now the cool thing about shapes, as is with the pen tool, you can fill them, or you can take the color out. You can stroke them or not stroke. And then they have like these different options with the stroke, how big you can make it. The stroke type, like dotted lines. This is really cool. This option here isn't in some of the earlier versions of Photoshop, but it's really dope because you can make like a coupon style box, and it's really helped me for things like that in the past when I had to do work where I'd have to make coupons, or just kind of have that artistic dotted line thing, or like the dots here, different borders and stuff, make stuff look a little cooler. You know what I mean? So that's cool. And this here is just the alignment of the stroke, like if it's going to be on the outside of the box, directly in the middle of the lines, or in the inside boundary. So there's a lot of different options you can do. Gaps and dashes. It's pretty dope, and you can get pretty intricate with it. So that's the shape tool. The same idea applies for these other ones here: ellipse, polygon, rounded rectangle, and a line tool. The only one that has something a little more interesting than the rest is this tool here, which is the custom shape tool. Photoshop is already going to have a bunch of them in here for you to use. Like there's badges, and just a bunch of different icons you can use in your designs to make your picture stand out a little bit more. It's pretty cool stuff. So that's pretty much a basis of the tools. These bottom two here are the zoom and the hand tool. The hand tool just allows you to move around on the canvas. Rotate tool allows you to turn the canvas so you can maybe see something a little better. And then that's it. If you guys have any questions on any of the tools, I know I might have kind of brushed over just a couple of them, not too much, because frankly I don't use them that often and I don't find too much use for them. So, but I don't know, depending on the type of Photoshop work you do, you might have a little more interest in these tools. So if you need a clearer, more understanding of how to use one of them, just let me know, send me some comments, and I can probably help you to learn how to get more comfortable with some of these tools. Also, if you want me to go over anything else in future lessons, be sure to leave those in the comments as well. Thanks for watching. Hope this was helpful for you, and the only other thing I can leave you with is keep experimenting. Take all of these tools and the small things you've learned with them and just keep practicing making random stuff and getting familiar with how Photoshop works, because that's the only way you're gonna get good at it. So that's my 2 cents on the subject. Peace.